Do you honestly believe that at 50, the only way to be desirable is to flash a fat bank account, drive a flashy car, or dye your hair to look like you're still in your 20s? Most men accept this as a death sentence for their romantic life. But they are playing a game that women stopped caring about decades ago. After studying thousands of women's attraction patterns, I found the one thing every man over 50 is missing. And it has nothing to do with your status. It's not about what she sees when you walk in. It's about what she feels when you're silent next to her. I'm going to reveal a psychological secret women won't tell you, partly because they don't even realize they're hardwired to respond to it. Stop scrolling and listen. If you're ready to stop auditioning for women's attention and start commanding it, subscribe to this channel. I'm about to show you the indifference activation method, a system most men are too afraid to try. If you're one of the few who's ready to reclaim his presence, hit that button and let's dive into the story. Look at the man in the mirror, the sharp suit, the distinguished silver at the temples, the hard-earned lines of experience etched into his face. By all societal accounts, you should be at your peak. Yet you walk into a room and feel like a ghost. You've been told a lie so pervasive that it has become your internal cage. The myth that after 50, your value as a man is strictly tied to the size of your bank account, the emblem on your car, or how well you can mimic the frantic energy of a 30-year-old. Society wants you to believe that if you aren't high status in the loudest, most material sense, you've effectively become a background character in your own life. This is the invisible man deception, and it's the primary reason you feel overlooked. The truth is far more confronting. You aren't invisible because of your age. You are invisible because of your energy. When you swallow the lie that you are worthless without external trophies, you begin to project what I call gray energy. It's a muted, hesitant vibration, the energy of a man who is constantly apologizing for taking up space. You scan the room for permission to be there. You look at a beautiful woman and immediately disqualify yourself because you aren't a billionaire or a fitness model. That internal collapse, that quiet desperation to be noticed, creates a repelling frequency. It tells the world, and specifically women, that you don't believe in your own worth. Women don't ignore you because of the date on your birth certificate. They ignore you because they can sense you've stopped being the protagonist of your own story. You've traded your masculine weight for a performance, hoping that if you try hard enough, someone will validate you. But visibility isn't something granted by others. It's a result of the internal frequency you broadcast. A man who believes he is irrelevant will always be treated as such. The moment you realize that your value isn't a transaction based on status symbols, but a manifestation of how grounded you are in your own skin, the gray energy begins to evaporate. You aren't losing your power. You've simply been taught to look for it in the wrong places. It's time to stop auditing for a role you already own and start understanding that your presence is the only currency that actually matters. To understand why the world seems to have gone quiet, you have to realize that the rules of the game didn't just change. The players moved to a completely different stadium. By the time a woman reaches 50, her internal selection engine has undergone a radical evolution. In her 20s and 30s, she was likely scanning for ambition, for the high-octane flash of the hunter, or the potential of a man who could build a future. She's already done that dance. She's dealt with the high-maintenance egos, the ambitious climbers who were never actually present, and the men who use status to mask a hollow interior. She has survived the storms of building a life, and because of that, her radar for noise is now razor-sharp. The revelation most men miss is that a mature woman isn't looking for a project or a trophy. She is screening for emotional depth and rock-solid stability. While you are busy worrying that your lack of a flashy lifestyle makes you irrelevant, she is actually looking past the suit and the car, searching for a man who has finally stopped running. She is looking for the still point in a chaotic world. When she meets a man over 50, she is asking a silent, subconscious question. Is this man comfortable in his own skin, or is he still trying to prove something? This is where your perceived weakness becomes your ultimate power. Younger men are biologically tethered to performance. They are still auditioning for the world's approval. But you have lived. You have scars. You have history. And you have the capacity for a depth of presence that a younger man cannot even simulate. If you can tap into that reservoir of earned maturity, you become an anomaly. You transition from being a man who is selling himself to being a man who is simply there. When you stop trying to compete with the ghost of who you were at 30, you unlock a magnetic frequency that a mature woman finds intoxicating. She doesn't want the frantic energy of a man chasing status. She wants the grounded energy of a man who has found his peace. She wants to feel that if the world outside catches fire, you are the one person who won't flinch. That level of emotional mastery is the rarest currency in the modern dating market. You aren't being overlooked because you're old. You're being overlooked because you're still trying to use a map of a city that no longer exists. It's time to realize that the selection engine has shifted in your favor, provided you have the courage to stop performing and start being present. Even with the right knowledge, most men find themselves tripping over 3 psychological tripwires that act like anchors on their attraction power. The first, and perhaps most damaging, is the performance trap. This is the moment you stop being a man and start becoming an actor. You walk into a date or a social setting and immediately begin an audition for her interest. You find yourself over-explaining your successes, name-dropping your achievements, or trying to be the most interesting version of yourself. In your mind, you are showing your value. In her mind, she sees a man who is exhausted by his own need to be seen. The performance creates a wall of noise that prevents genuine connection, signaling that you don't believe your raw, unadorned presence is enough to keep her there. Right on the heels of the performance comes the validation hunger. This is a subtle, almost invisible leak in your masculine energy. It's that split second after you tell a joke where you scan her face for a smile, or the way you adjust your opinion the moment you sense she disagrees. You are essentially handing her the remote control to your self-worth. When you look to a woman to confirm that you are worthy, attractive, or successful, you create an immense psychological burden for her. She doesn't want to be your judge or your mother. She wants to be your partner. The moment she senses that her approval is the oxygen you need to breathe, she instinctively pulls away to avoid the weight of your neediness. Finally, there is the scarcity mindset, the internal panic that treats every interaction like it is your last chance at happiness. This is the shadow that hangs over the man who believes the invisible man lie. Because you think your value is expiring, you rush the process. You overinvest too early. You overtext, and you project a frantic energy that screams, "Please don't leave." You've turned a potential connection into a life raft, and no one wants to board a sinking ship. These 3 errors are the psychological villains of your story, but they all share a single root: the belief that you are lacking. They are the gray energy in action, turning the distinguished man in the mirror into a beggar for attention. To move forward, you must realize that you aren't fighting for a seat at the table. You are the table. The moment of true discovery begins when you stop looking at the surface and start understanding the invisible physics of attraction. Most men believe that connection is built on the conscious channel. The words you say, the jokes you tell, or the resume of achievements you present. But beneath that conversation, there is a second, far more powerful channel operating in total silence: the subconscious recognition of your nervous system. By the time a woman is over 50, her intuition has been sharpened into a high-precision instrument. She is no longer just listening to your stories. She is literally feeling your internal state. The secret that changes everything is realizing that a mature woman is hypersensitive to the frequency you broadcast. When you walk into her space, she isn't just seeing your suit or your smile. She is subconsciously reading the tension in your jaw, the speed of your breath, and the subtle vibration of your energy. If you are anxious, if you are seeking her approval, or if you are internally apologizing for your presence, her nervous system picks up that static as a signal of danger or weakness. She feels it as a lack of safety, and in that instant, attraction dies. It doesn't matter how successful you are on paper. If your internal state is a mess of neediness, she will instinctively pull away. But here is the inciting incident of your transformation. When you learn to ground yourself, you become a magnetic anomaly. If you can occupy your body with a sense of absolute peace, a calm, unshakable certainty that requires nothing from her, she feels that too. In a world of frantic performing men, your groundedness feels like a sanctuary. Understanding the psychology is the foundation, but transformation requires a tactical shift in your daily internal architecture. To stop projecting gray energy and start broadcasting magnetic presence, you must implement a specific 10-minute rewiring process I call the Indifference Activation Protocol. This isn't about learning new lines or tricks. It's about shifting your nervous system from a state of seeking to a state of sufficiency. It begins with 5 minutes of validation reversal. Most men over 50 spend their days looking for a win in the eyes of others to feel valuable. In this practice, you close your eyes and intentionally source your worth from the iron of your own history. You recall the challenges you've survived, the integrity you've maintained when no one was looking, and the character you've built over half a century. You anchor your value in who you are, not who is watching. You realize that your worth is a historical fact, not a public opinion. Once you are anchored, you transition into 3 minutes of outcome visualization. This is where you dismantle the fear of rejection that makes you appear desperate. You visualize yourself in a social interaction with a woman you find highly attractive, but instead of imagining a win, you visualize her walking away. You see her leaving the conversation, and you observe your internal reaction. In this mental rehearsal, your heart rate doesn't spike, your mood doesn't drop, and your sense of self remains entirely intact. You are practicing the art of being totally content regardless of her response. By doing this, you train your brain to stop viewing women as the prize and start viewing your own peace as the ultimate goal. When you no longer fear the exit, you become the most powerful person in the room. The final 2 minutes are dedicated to the silent presence. This is the physical embodiment of your power. You stand or sit in absolute stillness, practicing the ability to exist without the need to speak, explain, or entertain. Most men fill silence with nervous chatter or performance energy because they are terrified of being boring. But a man who is comfortable in silence signals a depth of confidence that is rare and overwhelming. You are practicing being a still point in a world of frantic noise. By the time these 10 minutes are over, you aren't just an older man trying to get noticed. You are a grounded masculine force who is no longer auditioning for the world. You've moved from a scarcity mindset to an internal abundance that women can sense before you even say a word. Imagine the man from the reflection, silver-haired, sharp-jawed, draped in a coat that fits with the precision of a second skin. Watch him as he enters the room. He doesn't kick the doors down with a loud voice or an aggressive stride. In fact, he moves with a calculated softness, a deliberate ease that suggests he has nowhere else he'd rather be. Most men over 50 walk into a social setting with an invisible list of demands. They need to be noticed. They need to be respected. They need to be validated. They scan the faces in the crowd like hungry ghosts, looking for a smile or a nod to confirm they still exist. But this man, the one you are becoming, walks in with a different weapon entirely, the weapon of presence. He isn't the loudest man in the room, but he is undeniably the most present. He isn't surveying the room to see what he can get from it. He is simply occupying his own space with a heavy, masculine gravity. This is the presence weapon in action, because he doesn't need a single thing from the people around him. No approval, no attention, no ego boost. The psychological vacuum he creates is irresistible. It's a paradox of human nature. The moment you truly stop seeking the room's attention, the room starts to follow you. Watch how the energy shifts. While younger men are darting their eyes around, performing and leaning in too close to prove their worth, he stands still. He listens more than he speaks. When he does speak, his voice comes from his chest, not his throat, because he isn't in a rush to justify his presence. He is like the eye of a hurricane, calm, grounded, and immovable. Women sense this shift instantly. To a mature woman who has spent her life navigating the frantic, needy energy of men who want something from her, this man feels like a sanctuary. He is a rare, still point. He doesn't have to chase because he has become the destination. He isn't looking for the exit or the next best thing. He is fully, vibrantly right here. This is the rising action of your transformation. You are no longer the invisible man begging for a glance. You are the grounded man who has realized that the greatest power you possess is the ability to be completely okay if no one looks your way. And because you are okay with it, they can't seem to look away. You have stopped being a consumer of the room's energy and have become its anchor. This is the moment of the great showdown, but the battle isn't happening out there in the world. It is happening in the silent, pressurized space behind your own eyes. It is the final collision between the man you were trained to be, the one who starves for a woman's nod of approval, and the man you are becoming, who is finally fed by his own internal fire. For decades, you have carried the heavy, exhausting weight of neediness, a subtle vibration that whispers, "Please see me. Please tell me I still matter." It is a ghost that haunts your posture and tightens your voice. But today, that ghost meets a new force, inner peace. In this climax, you finally face the terrifying, liberating truth that your worth is not a variable. You look at the possibility of rejection, of silence, or of being overlooked. And for the first time in 50 years, you don't flinch. You stop trying to prove you aren't worthless because you've realized that the very act of proving it is what makes you feel small. This is the birth of true outcome independence. It is the moment you realize that while you may be genuinely interested in the woman across from you, you do not need her to stay to remain whole. You are no longer an actor waiting for the applause. You are the theater itself, vast, grounded, and unshakable. As that internal shift solidifies, something almost supernatural happens to your presence. In the exact second you stop chasing, your attraction power peaks. It is the paradox of the masculine. The less you grasp, the more you hold. By letting go of the need to win, you become the only prize worth winning. The frantic, gray energy of the auditioning man evaporates, replaced by a dense, gravitational pull. You become the still point in the turning world. Women sense this shift instantly. They feel the sudden lack of pressure, the absence of the grabby energy that defines most men. They see a man who is genuinely okay, whether they lean in or walk away. That indifference isn't coldness. It is the highest form of self-possession. You have won the showdown not by defeating an enemy, but by surrendering the need for validation. You have stepped out of the shadow of irrelevance and into the light of your own earned authority. The journey culminates in a realization that changes the gravity of every room you enter. You are no longer a participant in the frantic race of youth. The man over 50 who has mastered his internal state isn't competing with younger men because he has stepped off their playing field entirely. While the 30-year-old is busy exerting energy to be noticed, projecting a loud, restless ambition to prove his worth, you have cultivated the power of the still point. You have replaced the exhaustion of the chase with the ease of the invitation. The transformation is complete when you stop being a seeker of attention and become a source of presence. In this new reality, the power dynamic has undergone a total reversal. You are no longer the one hoping to be picked, checking your phone with bated breath, or overthinking the subtext of a conversation. Because you have sourced your validation from within, you have become the one who is selective. You have moved from a mindset of scarcity, where any attention felt like a lifeline, to a mindset of abundance, where you have the clarity to observe, to evaluate, and to choose. This isn't a game of arrogance. It is the quiet dignity of a man who knows his own value and refuses to negotiate it. You look at the world with a steady gaze that says, "I am already whole. You are an addition to a life that is already full." Paradoxically, it is this exact willingness to walk away that makes you impossible to ignore. When a woman senses that you are genuinely okay alone, that your peace isn't a performance but a lived reality, she feels a magnetic pull that no flashy status symbol can replicate. You are now the man who is truly seen, not because you are shouting for attention, but because your stillness acts as a mirror in a world of noise. You have transitioned from the invisible ghost to the grounded anchor. This is the ultimate resolution of your story. You haven't found a way to beat age. You have found a way to embody it so completely that it becomes your greatest asset. You are relevant, you are grounded, and you are profoundly magnetic. You've spent half a century becoming this version of yourself, a man who has earned his ease, silenced his insecurities, and reclaimed his throne as the protagonist of his own life. The women worth knowing aren't looking for a younger version of you. They are waiting for exactly the man you have finally had the courage to become. You've spent 50 years becoming the man you are. Stop hiding him behind a performance. Subscribe, because in the next video, I'm going to show you the specific silent presence techniques that turn your age into your greatest unfair advantage. It's time to be seen for who you actually are.